and the recording has just started. So welcome again. Yeah, as I said, we are so happy to have you here. Before we start, we decided that we would like just to do a 1-minute grounding exercise, because you might have just come out of a meeting, or you might have had your kids running around or something. So what I would like you to do is put down whatever you're holding in your hands and close your eyes. Just close your eyes, unless you're driving. So close your eyes, try to relax, let your mind go. Take a deep breath and another deep breath. Just letting go of what was and grounding yourself in the present moment. Take another deep breath and try to see where you might be stressed a little bit, or where there might be some tension in your body. Feel the tension and breathe into it and just let it go. And as you let it go, let yourself ground and be centered in the moment where you are right now. Take another deep breath and relax. Let your mind take you to the most beautiful place, to a place where you know nobody's disturbing you, and you can feel the wind in your hair, and the sun is caressing your face, and the flowers are blooming, and there is all this beauty around. Just stay in that place for a second and just look around and see all those happy people who are doing just the same. Take another deep breath. Come back to the now and slowly open your eyes and come back to us. So, how do you feel? Yeah, so just a bit of being more grounded and centered to be able to take in everything what we will be sharing with you today. Good. David, should we start?
We should, yes.
Good, okay, perfect.
Would you like to briefly explain to people who you are, Joy?
Yes, I will. Yeah. So who we are. My name is Joy. I'm originally from Slovenia, but I live in Vienna, Austria. I spent most of my career in the oil and gas industry, and where I was leading different organizations around Europe. And some years ago, I have decided to completely change my life and went out of the corporate. And I nowadays will work as an executive coach on leadership development and team development. And in addition, I have a supervisory board mandate in Germany, which helps to keep my business part of me happy at all times. So yeah, that's quickly about me. What about you, David? Would you like to share?
Sure, yeah. So I spent the first half of my career in the consumer goods industry in marketing and leadership roles. And part of that was discovering the importance of people and the impact that people can have on the business. And so the second half of my career has been as a business improvement consultant with a particular focus on people effectiveness. Which is what gives me my inspiration and passion.
Yeah.
So yeah,
yeah.
Stuff. And what we're going to do today for the rest of the time we have with us is to focus, as Joy said, on setting up to be successful at leading remotely and meeting virtually. You probably have seen or heard most of what we're going to say, but we thought, look, but by doing this, we would be helping you just to bring all of what your knowledge is together and focusing on the particular topic at this particular point in time. So we just thought it would be helpful for everyone to do this. And last week we did a piece on working remotely, where we had 30, nearly 40 people on that call at one point. So at the end of this, we're going to ask you a question, and we're going to give you the question now, and feel free to share any thoughts that you might have on the chat facility as we go through the webinar. The question we've got is, what other webinars might be useful to you at this time? So Joy and I are very happy to continue this series of free webinars if people feel there are topics of real interest that we could maybe help to bring to light and discuss out. So have a think about that question as we go through. The style of the webinar we're going to be conducting is similar to last week. It'll be conversational in style, and we'll be asking you to think about some questions or comments, and please post the questions or comments as we go through. Post those on the chat space, and we will pause to review some of the comments and questions as we go along. So yeah, anything you want to share or any questions you want to raise, please do so. We'll stay on mute pretty much the whole time, simply to manage the chaos that might otherwise emerge in it if everyone had a chance to speak. So there we go. It's you know, as I say, it's fairly informal, and I'm going to kick this off, and I'm going to ask Joy a question, because we're going to be talking about leading teams remotely and also holding meetings on a virtual platform. And I guess the first question is about what are the real essence, the real fundamentals of leading teams. So we're going to start at that place. And Joy, I know you've got a few thoughts on that.
Yeah, so when we look at leading teams, I would say we started looking at relationships. And I believe that the basic of any relationship is trust. And especially when we lead teams and remotely, building this trust is extremely important. If you think about how do we build trust, here I usually like to look at Charles Feldman, because he wrote a book about trust and about the 4 ways of how we build trust. The first way is about sincerity. It's really about being honest, about walking the talk, about really mean what you say and say what you mean, and also to really act accordingly. What I mean by that is really walk the talk. So if you say that you're going to do something, you do it. And in case you're incapable of doing it, just say to the person, I didn't manage today because this and this has happened. It's about how do you communicate it. It's really important, especially because now when you work remotely, you don't bump into each other in the office anymore or at the coffee machine or somewhere else. So the communication comes extremely important. The second part of this, it's reliability, which means that you can really count on me, that I'm going to deliver what I actually promised, right? So if you promise something, also deliver it. So meet the commitments. Next, I really like the competence, because competence is, or we would call it even capability. It's about the knowledge you have, but it's also, I know I can do this, so you also tell to the people. But second, also knowing when you don't know something and communicating this. So capability is extremely important as well. And the last but not least distinction is care, where you really have the interest of the other persons at heart, but also your interest. And you really, you know, when you make decisions, you really look at it and say, yeah, this is what it is. And that you show that you care, that you say, we are in this together. I am here to support you. So the 4 distinctions of Feldman are sincerity, reliability, competence or capability, and care. So this is actually about building trust. Other fundamentals are also, I'm not sure how many of you know about Patrick Lencioni. Patrick Lencioni has wrote a book, it's called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And he also says that the fundamental work of any team is trust. So it's about how do you build that relationship. Something else that it's important when leading teams, it's openness. It's about being open about what's going on, about really having a discussion about the things that are important. Then it's about authenticity, really showing who you are, bringing your whole self actually to work, even if this does mean that you might not be at your best at some point, but you're being authentic, you're being open. And the next part that I believe that it's really something that holds us together are values. Are our values, I'm not remembering the word, but are they somehow combined or aligned actually with our team, with who we are, with our work, with what we do? Because values are the ones who actually will help you, or they're the ones who will foster your behavior and so on. So make sure that the values are something that you are aware of. Anything that you would like to add, David?
Yeah, I think that discussion about values is really important, because the values are the glue that holds people together within a team or an organization. And so if we get values alignment, we get an organization or a team that's really well bounded and really well bonded. So yeah, I think the other question that moves on to, Joy, is a question around what are teams here for? Teams are here to deliver a common purpose. They have a common purpose and a focus on delivering that.
Yeah.
And high performing teams obviously do better. And we know that high performing teams are working when we see the team members working well together without high levels of supervision or direction. And when we see people offering discretionary effort to each other when customers or other stakeholders demand it. And we see individuals working in that place that we called in flow, where they seem to almost disappear off into their own world of focus and concentration, and they really do deliver high value. High performing teams, they deal with difficult conversations. They can hold difficult conversations without fear of personal attack or embarrassment. And we see decisions being made in a spirit of openness and objectivity. So high performing teams, the members of those teams, they act spontaneously as advocates for their organization. So there's a number of things that we can identify when we know that teams are performing at a high level. I guess the question then is what's happening when teams are, and when we're leading teams during some sort of a crisis? What sort of view do you have on that, Joy?
Yeah, well, what I believe is that, leading during a crisis really needs a leader, that comes in front. And leading during a crisis, I like always to say that we need to emphasize our purpose. There is this video from Simon Sinek about why. So why do we do what we do? And I really believe that especially in times of crisis, it's so important as an organization, as a team, as a department, as a person, as an individual, to really know your why. Why do you do what you do? What's the purpose in this? What am I trying to achieve? What are we trying to achieve? What's the added value that we are bringing? And then it's also, what's the vision behind it? Where do we need to go? It's really, why do we do what we do? And then one more thing that it's here, I would say, of utmost importance, it's really working on the culture of the team And, you know, culture is based on behaviors, and behaviors are based on the values we hold. So how do we want to be together, right? Really, what are the behaviors that we want to show up? How do we want to show up, and so on?
And
Yeah.
what sort of values, Joy, do you think a leader in these circumstances might demonstrate?
Well, there are many, but we have put together a few, and I think maybe the most important one at the moment is to being at ease with uncertainty. You know, we could keep on saying that we are in a VUCA world at the moment, and I haven't seen anything more VUCA than now. And if you don't know what VUCA is, it means volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, right? And honestly, I haven't in my life experienced a more VUCA environment. So the question is, how do you then cope with this uncertainty? How can you have ease and still, you know, trust in the future? So that's one value that's important. The second one, it's how in all this do you still keep calm? How do you keep grounded? Because especially as a leader, you are the one, you are the role model. So if you go around panicking, I'm sure your team will be panicking as well. So how can you keep yourself grounded and centered and calm so that you can show this to others as well? The next one is confidence. And when we talk about confidence, I really believe it's not always about knowing what you have to do, but trusting as well that everything is going to be just fine, and that there will be always a way to find out, you know, what's going on, what's the next step we need to do, and doing it together. Then there is one more, which is empathy. And when I talk about empathy, and it connects with the next one, which is compassion, it's how do we show empathy and compassion towards others? And especially now in those times, you know, it's so easy that we get frustrated, you know, that we get angry at people, but we are all in this together. It's a challenging time for all of us. So showing empathy and compassion, I believe it's one of the most important things. And of course, you know, things will go wrong and it's normal. But, you know, honestly, ask yourself a question, will this matter in a year from now? You know, in 2 years from now? So sometimes it's just better to let things go. The next one, it's courage. And when we talk about courage, it's about the courage to have difficult discussions, the courage to show yourself, to really be your whole self, the courage to take decisions that might be difficult ones. So, you know, it's really what does courage mean to you in this situation? How can you bring it forth? The next one is wellness. And wellness, we also mean self-care, because especially as a leader, if you do not take care of yourself, you will not be able to take care of others. We touched a lot of that on the first webinar about what do you need to do to still have, you know, feeling well and so on. And the second one is collaboration. You know, I keep on saying we are in this together, and I really believe that only if we work together, we will get through this. So how do you cooperate and collaborate with the rest of your team? And last but not least, transparency. In times of crisis, transparency is one of the most important values as well. Sharing what you know and what you don't know. Really sharing what's going on, being transparent about how you feel, but also the information you're gathering, because not being transparent now will erode trust at the moment. So transparency, it's really, really important. Yeah, I have been talking a lot about values, and we could add many more, but those are, we believe, the most important ones to really hold right now in times of crisis. Yeah, so if we go further then, David, what else is important when we lead in crisis? We were talking about courage and so on. Anything that you would like to add?
Yes, I think there's a couple of things, and you've mentioned care already, and you've mentioned compassion, and I think a good leader at this point in time is always going to be also very focused on having concern for people's mental well-being, and that should be regardless of what position we're in, whether we're in steady state or whether we're in a VUCA environment. A good leader will always have concern for their people's mental well-being. And remember that the best thing that someone can hear when they're not in a great mental place is, I'm here for you and I'm listening.
Yeah, I'm listening.
And those two things are really, really powerful for people.
Yeah.
I think linked to that is also, though, being able to develop a culture of psychological safety. And psychological safety is feeling able to show and employ one's self without fear of negative consequences to self-image, status, or career. Being able to express oneself authentically at work. And a culture of psychological safety is one in which everyone associated with the team or the organization understands that actually it's okay for colleagues sometimes to feel the stress of working. There is an inbuilt and recognized culture of supporting colleagues, sharing workloads and covering for absence in a spirit of positivity. And that every employee gets the opportunity to work in flow and to do what they do best every day. So I think being able to create this culture where it's okay to be not okay. And the leader's role very much is to create the conditions in which people can feel that they can be authentically themselves at all times without fear of any negativity. So, I think that's a state which we should be trying to create as leaders all the time. But I think particularly during a very weird and worrying time like this, it's even more important that we bear those things in mind.
Yeah, it's also just about asking what's on your mind, what's keeping you awake at the moment, what are your fears. Maybe I can share a personal experience here. So I know some people on the that are online right now, and last summer when my mom died, and I was really not in a good space, and especially when you work as a coach, when you are not in a good space, it really affects your work. And what I have done, in fact, and I'm really happy because years ago I couldn't have done that. I shared it with all my clients, and just by sharing it, the space I was in, I was met with so much compassion, and empathy and understanding, because people understood that the space I'm in, it's not the nicest one, it's not the easiest one, and still we were able to work together. So if you are in such a space right now, because I know that some people are really struggling at the moment, it's really important that you are able to share it at home with your team and so on. So, and if you're a leader, you need to create that space where people are able to share it and willing to share it without feeling bad about it and so on. Yeah. Okay.
Good.
Yeah, I see we have one question. So if you have any thoughts or comments, feel free to put it in the chat now. So maybe I will just read it what Chris wrote, a discussion point. Thinking about the challenges that lie ahead, I'm noticing that some of our working groups, which meet, say, monthly, are becoming quite disengaged with the start of new working arrangements. Wonder what insights we have on the discussion to bring greater focus, ownership, commitment, teamship to working groups that may be without formal leadership. Ooh, David, do you want to answer this one?
Yeah, sure. I'll certainly have a go, Joy.
Yeah, please do.
I think it's a really interesting question, Chris, and thanks for sharing it. My thought on it is that since it sounds like you're talking particularly about a group that doesn't have formal leadership, I think it would be really important to bring the group together and agree what the purpose of the group is, and to really ensure that there's a common understanding of what this group's meeting for, and to explore with the group why it is even more important at this moment of time when you're all virtual and disengaged physically, why it's really important for the group to continue operating. And it may be that you decide that you might have a change in the frequency of the meeting of the group, that you might break the group into subgroups to deal with specific topics, that given at the moment clients may be rowing back some of their demands on you, that you may have a little more time to spend on some of the things that the group can deal with that you perhaps haven't been getting to because you've been so busy on the client focused work. So I think there's a number of things, and it's this. I think it's this. Let's make sure we all understand why this group exists.
Yeah.
And have that group conversation. Because actually, if you can't justify why it exists, it's okay to say let's put this group on hold for a while. If people don't understand why they're in it and what they're there for, then explore what all the options might be. One of which may be to either suspend the group until you get back into a more office-based environment again, or maybe it's not actually adding as much value as it should have been or could have been, and therefore maybe there's a different way of achieving what it was set up to achieve in the first place.
Yeah, I just see, thank you, David. Lena is writing that she likes this point, and this perhaps could be a webinar topic. Yeah, we could think about that.
Cool. Okay. Yeah.
And I don't see more questions, so anyone
feel free to keep posting them, but we'll carry on. But
we will carry on, and we have time for questions at the end, so we can even put you online later on so you can ask them live. Okay, right. Good. Yeah, so leading remotely. David, what's really important here when we lead remotely?
Well, actually links to the comments I made to Chris a minute ago. I think leading remotely shouldn't be any different to leading in an office-based environment where we have the opportunity of seeing people, communicating with them both verbally but also with non-verbals. But I think there are certain things that we should be perhaps more focused on than we might normally be, even more focused on perhaps. The one is to reinforce the team's purpose. We've mentioned purpose a few times, but it is really, really fundamental that we reinforce why we are a team and what our common purpose is and what outputs we're hoping to deliver and who the beneficiaries will be of the work that we do. So really understanding that purpose, I think, is fundamental. I think making sure that our schedule is up to date and is visible to people, and that likewise team members also have a highly visible schedule and that it is up to date. And as team leader, I think just asking the question, are the schedules up to date? Can I see all the things that you're currently committed to, so that we make sure that we're all operating as cogs in a wheel rather than on parallel lines. And I think also then to accentuate your usual practices as a leader. We probably do quite a few things as team leaders almost automatically, and sometimes we need to perhaps revisit them and think, what is it I'm doing and how can I really reinforce that in a way that makes sense for people, given that they are remote and I can't just go and nag them or remind them about things. So accentuating what your normal practices are, I think, is useful for people. And I think reaching out more frequently to people is probably a good idea. We may perhaps only have a once a week or a once a fortnight conversation with individual team members, and maybe at this time when people are working on their own and feeling perhaps slightly adrift, it's worth reaching out more frequently and making even extra effort to ensure that people are in a good place and checking in with them on a regular basis. And I guess perhaps the most obvious one, really understanding what our methods of communication are, really understanding how our communication is worded and phrased and delivered, which media we're going to be using to deliver communication messages, to ensure that we use all the right words and that we apply the right degree of emphasis where we want to. So it's being even more aware of how we say things and what we say and in what context we say them. Yeah. So yeah, Simon's just posted a point, which I think you did last time as well, Simon. So thank you for reminding us. But having virtual coffee meetings, coffee mornings, maybe for an hour, where you pull people together and you shoot the breeze. You just, check in with people, find out how people are, talk about last night's TV or the book you've just read or whatever it might be, just to give people a sense that this is still a very human business that we're in. This team's still a very vibrant and real team. It isn't just a series of electronic transactions.
Yeah. If I may add, what also is important now is, there is no more that coffee machine where you meet. So I know some people have a WhatsApp or something like that. They call it the water cooler or coffee machine chat or something, where people can just share even like stupid things or something like that, so that keep their spirits high. Or I know of teams, for example, I mentioned Simon Sinek already before. So he is leading a remote team for already, I'm not sure, 5 years or longer. So what they do, they actually once a week, they meet for 1 hour 15. And during that 1 hour 15, the only thing they do is they build the relationship up. So they have a few questions. It might be the question about the question of the week. Then they give high fives to people, meaning of things that they really believe they have done well, or just they talk about what's on their mind, how they are doing privately and stuff like that. And everyone gets the opportunity to talk. So once a week, 1 hour 15, it's all about building the relationship. Yeah.
Nice. And what about team alignment, Joy? Because that talks to that topic, doesn't it?
Yeah, so we already discussed it last week, actually, and I cannot, I would say it more often. Whenever you lead a team, remote or not, team alignment, or you can call it the ground rules or the golden rules or team charter or however you want, it's one of the most important things that you can do. It's the basis. It's really about how are we going to work together? What's important? What kind of behaviors do we want to see? What kind of atmosphere do we want to have? How do we want to be with each other? And also what you need to discuss is what happens when the going gets tough, because it will get tough. There will be moments where, everyone will explode or it's not going to go the way it is. And how do you want to be with each other in that moment? It's also something that you really need to consider and talk. And then, especially now when working from home, David mentioned the communication. So we talked already a lot about that, but also availability. Because as you're not in the office anymore, share with your team when is everyone available, because you might have 3 kids at home and your husband or wife who also needs to work. So do you have slots like one person works for 3 hours, then the next one for 3 hours, then 3 hours, 3 hours? If this is the case, share it with everyone. And also make sure that you have this routine. When you work from home, it's so easy to work 24/7. And especially when you work from home, you need to avoid that. So make sure you discuss with the team, when do you start and when do you finish, so that you can also psychologically switch off after that. Yeah. Okay. I see some questions. Shall we have a look at them now, David? Maybe just quickly. Thanks, Joy and David. A gentle but firm challenge to the group to prompt, refocus, reorganize, repurpose is required to re-energize. Yes, Chris, very well. Simon, we already answered. Kate, I have geography challenges with a remote team, and it means people have different energy levels depending on the time of day. Any tips apart from coffee? Yeah, we will come to that now because it's how do you keep people energized. And then another one, from DLEC, I cordially believe that online working and learning environment can be designed as good and effective as on-site working environments. Totally agree. Considering that this is our current reality, I would like to ask to you and to the other participants, is the majority of us think the way I do, or rather in favor of conventional methods of efficient workings as individuals and as teams, and any teams to improve this virtual environment? Okay, so what you are saying, Dilek, is that you believe that in person might be more effective than virtual, or the other way around? Okay, yeah, the other way around. Okay, good. We are coming to that just now. So maybe, David, you want to share some tips of how to have a virtual meeting?
Yes, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And I think, Dilek, let's come back to that as well, because I'd be interested to see what other postings come up for that. I think there's a question, you've put efficient working in inverted commas. So I think we may need your microphone for that in a minute to understand exactly what you meant by that.
Get ready.
Interesting question. So yeah, virtual meetings. Obviously, when we're holding virtual meetings, we are missing some of the body language, some of the non-verbals that we would normally get in a physical encounter, and therefore potentially missing or lacking the affinity that comes with that physical contact. So clearly we need to do things slightly differently to try and encapsulate what people might be saying and meaning in a virtual meeting in a way that we'd normally do more naturally face to face. But if we start at the beginning, I think the first place to start is by sending out an action-focused agenda in advance. Lots of meetings I've been to in many, many years of business is meetings where we share information, and they are probably the most tedious meetings because all the information sharing could have been done in advance, and the meeting then can be focused on actually drawing insights from that information and arriving at actions. So if we send out an action-focused agenda in advance, I think that's always useful. I think it's also useful to check in with people right at the beginning. You know, how are you? What's been going on for you? How are you coping with the fact that we're all having to work from home here and can't travel very much? How much exercise are you managing to get? How much fresh air are you getting? Checking in with people at the beginning, I think, is really important. And I think the other thing that's really important is to be seen. I work with a number of clients, and they have a corporate policy of not using the video on virtual conversations, which, I think they say they do it for bandwidth reasons. I think it's really important to see people, and that's part of getting across from the body language and the non-verbals bit, and it's also keeping people in the room, as it were, as opposed to being behind a screen. Create a visual of the meeting. So sometimes what I do is I'll draw on a piece of paper a circle, and as people come onto the call, I'll put their names round the round table, so we can see who's actually there. And at the end of it, I'll say, right, here's who's on the call. We're all sitting together around a table, which means that we all have an equal share in this meeting. It's not my meeting, it's our meeting. So creating a visual is quite a good idea, and that gets involvement from everyone, or it stands a chance of getting greater involvement from everyone at least. I think even more so than when we're physical, when we're on a virtual meeting, it's really useful to get to the point. Brevity rules, we might say. So if there's a point you want to make, get to it. Try not to use too many words. I know we English can be a little wordy at times. I know I can be. And it's really important to remember to stay as brief and to the point as you can. And I think also linked to that, but I think also a separate point is, even more so than physically when we're together, it's really important on a virtual call to build on someone's conversation rather than destroy. And what I mean by that is to accentuate the positives of what people are saying, because they're on their own. After the call, if I've just destroyed them by taking apart their comments or discussion, then how are they going to feel? And they'll have no one necessarily to share that with and download and help them through it. So it's really important, I think, to build rather than to destroy. So there's a few ideas, but I think, Joy, you've got a few as well, haven't you?
Yeah, I actually do. I think one of the things that's really important is to check in regularly during the call. And what I mean by check in is asking questions: how are we doing in terms of how are we feeling, but also how are we doing in terms of the topics that we are discussing? Are we just circling around, or actually are we really making progress? So that's one thing. And if you just, like as a rule, if you are leading a team and a virtual meeting, what I would usually do, I would take a piece of paper, write the names of everyone on the call, and would just make a tick when someone speaks. So if I see that some people are, let's say, not so talkative or not contributing so much, I would then ask them, so David, what do you think about it? So you just make sure that everyone is involved, for example. Then what's also important is to keep the time. One thing you might notice is that online meetings at the end, especially when you lead, they're so much more tiring than a normal meeting sometimes, because we are in front of the screen all the time, and being in front of the screen, it's really tiring. So make sure it's better to have 40 minutes meetings and they have a purpose than to have 3-hour meetings, because when you have a 3-hour meeting, every 40 minutes you need to have a break, otherwise people will just they will be overwhelmed, they will be too tired, and their energy will not be there. Maybe what's also important is what David said: really try to look for the positive as well, like what are the positive things going on. And after the meeting, it's whoever leads, or you might agree that one person is taking notes, that you also share the actions. It's about accountability. So who will do what and by when, and you keep on checking on that. So that's really something. And yeah, maybe last but not least, let's have some fun still, right? Because even though we are virtual, it's nice to have fun. It's nice to bring some humor, to have a laugh, because we said this also helps to bring the stress level down and so on. So that's important. And I think somebody asked a question before, because people are in different time zones, so their energy level is low. Yeah. Just a little tip, you can take 3-4 minutes as a team, you put some music on, and it can be, like something from, I don't know, some film music, from a movie or something, and you just dance together for 2 minutes, everybody in front. And you will be surprised how quickly the energy level goes up. It's a stupid thing, I know, but it really helps. Or yeah, you might have something else for your team, where the people will then instead go for a walk or something. So just look what works for your team there. Yeah, and I think
yeah, and I noticed Eric has posted a question, which I think is an interesting one, which is about managing time online during the day.
Okay, let me see the questions.
Yeah, I think being busy on the phone, Eric, I think is a good idea. I think more than ever, perhaps being on the phone to people rather than necessarily sending email is a good idea. Again, to help people through the remoteness of virtual working, you could say. I find that if I'm getting lots of online distraction, there's two things. First of all, I turn off any tabs on my computer that are not relevant to the work I'm doing right now. And the second thing is that I schedule my work even more tightly than before. So I will create times during the day where maybe for 90 minutes or whatever time slot you need, where I'm actually busy on a particular topic, and I will turn off my email. I will turn off whatever I don't need on the screen, and I will focus just on the task. And I think because we're remotely working, we can share with our teams and our stakeholders, these are the times when I am available, but these are the times when actually I'm going to be working on stuff that's important. And because we're remote, we have the opportunity to do some really, really powerful work now. Perhaps you're in a business where demand has dropped because people are busy on other things and focusing on more essential matters. Or maybe you're in an area where your demand has gone up because you're perhaps, I don't know, producing medical equipment or supporting the essential services of your country. But whatever it is, carve out slots of time in the day in your diary to make the phone calls, to respond to emails, but also to do the important work that you can do to add value to your organization.
Yeah, I agree. We will come back to Dilek and Kate question at the end. So maybe we just, so like we're coming more to the end. Passion
okay,
that's here, yeah.
Tell us about this, Joy, because this is a really important piece, isn't it?
Yeah, we are in uncertain times. And I really believe that where is passion, there is a way. Meaning, if we feel passionate about the work we do, about the value that we are bringing, we will be able to go through this. So what is important is really to stay healthy. So work sensibly, don't work 24/7 because it's not helping you. Make some breaks because you do need that and everyone needs it. Be compassionate and understanding towards others and yourself. Last time I said, talk to yourself like you would to your best friend. So that's one really important tip. It's also about what are my boundaries, discussing with family, with colleagues, with the team, with the line manager, because when you are at work, be at work, and when you are at home in your private life, be in your private life. It's about being present in the moment. And how can you make this shift and what helps you? We talked about that last time. Because we are in control. You are all in control of your own time, and you are in control of what's happening to you and to others. So you have the choice. We all have the choice right now to how we react. Yeah. And one more quote for you all. David, do you want to read it?
I'm not going to read it because I think people hopefully can read it for themselves. But I do think that a lot of what we've talked about today does come back to revisiting our purpose, both our personal purpose and also our organizational and team purpose. It is about understanding how the values play out for us, what our personal values are, and how they match with those of the organization and the teams that we're operating in. And it's about reaching out to people and being part of a whole, being part of a whole piece that's going on. So we've covered some of the things around virtual leading and virtual teams and virtual team meetings. It's a big subject. There's lots of material out there on the web to talk to these topics in detail. But of course, we've also got this little network as well now. So if there are any things that you want to test or explore, feel free to reach out to Joy and myself, or indeed any of the other people that you may have met on these two webinars we've run. And we are within 5 minutes, so we're going to keep to time, which is what we were saying earlier is important. So yeah, there's a bit bit of conversation going on, which is great. Managing time. Managing time is just something that comes up in almost in every coaching conversation and every workshop I have.
Yeah.
Because we're so time poor generally that to be able to manage time effectively is really important.
Yeah, I see that Chris is writing about the Pomodoro technique,
Yeah.
yeah, we covered it in the first webinar last week, actually.
Yeah.
So if you look at our LinkedIn profiles, we both have posted the presentation also to the previous webinar there. So
I like
maybe we do the following. Those are our details if you want to stay in touch. We are not done yet, but if you want to stay in touch, those are our details. Please feel free to add us on LinkedIn, because this is where we usually post things. If you have any questions, or if we can support you or your team or your organization in any way, feel free to actually come back to us. That would be extremely useful as well for all of us. And if you just don't see it, but there is a lot of more slides that are here at the end that you will get access to on our LinkedIn. It's all about what we talked, David and myself, so far, but we didn't want to put it there because it just then people start reading and not really listening. So yeah.
Okay, so
yeah.
Simon Tarver has posted a long list of working from home. Thank you for
Wow.
that, Simon.
Thank you, Simon, for that. Oh, even more. Wow.
Yeah, so this talks to some of the things we talked about last time, and yeah, some of what we've talked about today.
Yeah.
So I think that would be good to put on a LinkedIn post. If you want to post it as a LinkedIn item, then
yeah, I will. Let me copy it. Oh, I cannot. So Simon, yes, Simon, please copy it if you can. Yeah, I will email you. Thank you, Simon. Perfect. So anyone who has any question, we still have 3 minutes, so feel free. I could join only for the last 15 minutes. Sorry, Astrid, give me a call and we can discuss.
So I'm going to go back very quickly to Dilek, because we said we'd give her a bit of airtime.
Yeah.
Just if you can summarize what your comment was and your question was, Dilek, that would be great.
Yes, of course, my pleasure. Hello, David. Hello, Joy. Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for your time cordially. What I strongly believe is we can design the space of this virtual environment if we want to stay connected in this crucial time. And what I mean by that is this. I am an architect by background, and I am a professional coach also, and I have lived one of the most efficient and productive learning experiences online with Ericsson International for 1.5 years. As an architect, I always strongly believed that physical space was all we needed. But when I was in that virtual space learning and executing my coaching processes, I became a fan of virtual societies and virtual way of efficient working. And I was wondering if other people are also as enthusiastic as I am and believe that working remotely can be as efficient as working on site or not. This was what I wanted to learn, because in this 2 years I had pretty good human connections. I had work done via doodle pools and via email sharings, and I have built up wonderful connections, as professional as personal as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dilek. And that is also sounds like a really good LinkedIn poll to me. If you put that question up on LinkedIn and ask people's opinion, this is a good time to do it, because a lot of people working from home, and I think you'll get some really interesting research from that. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. We are time to time out now.
Yes, we are. So I will send you an email to all of you. So if you don't want to receive any emails from us, just shoot me an email back that you're not more interested, and that is fine. I see Erin writing, already feel much better knowing others are experiencing exactly the same issues. Yes,
Right.
Erin, you are not alone. We are all experiencing the same issues. We are all learning. For David and myself, this is the second webinar we have ever done. We are learning, so it's we are trying to do our best. And you know, last time the technology was a bit not working, but we were like, yeah, whatever, you know, learning something out of it. And as we said, if we can support you in any way, let us know. Connect with us on LinkedIn. We will post the presentations there. And if we can help you in any way, let us know. Otherwise, stay safe, stay healthy, and I look forward to give you a real hug in real life as well. So hopefully soon.
Cheerio. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks, guys.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
See you.